Yo, what is up, everybody? Hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, winding down into another beautiful week ahead. At least I hope. So, definitely hit a vein with that chapter, which is awesome. I mean, I always say go definitely, show the content creator love, because it's just going over it, reacting to it, or whatever is fun. But like honestly, I know those guys put a lot of hard work into the content that they're pumping out. But I definitely do appreciate people who subscribe to me. That's awesome. It jumped up from what it was about a week and a half ago or so. But yeah, I haven't been able to get on with work. So that being said, there is another content creator that I've really enjoyed watching over the past like maybe 6 months to a year. And by happenstance, I happened to click on his channel and this one story, having no idea that it actually led to something that was very close to home. In fact, in the same county. So for those of you who are not familiar to Colorado, Jefferson County is the largest county here in Colorado. And it's borders Denver, like right there. But I remember what I like to do at night. I like to go walking around this particular park. And what this story has to do with is this, trying to hold my language here, but this idiot. And I remember calling someone, I can't recall, but I was like, what the hell's going on? There's like 2 copters in the air. There's freaking, I could hear the sirens all the way down, like I'm a good 2-3 miles, away from where all this crap was taking place. And when I sat down and I listened to the story, I was like, holy shit, that was that night that I was walking around the park, or walking around the lake at the park, and, all this commotion started going on with cops racing down, and, like, it just was, I was like, oh shit, something's going on. And sure enough, it was this freaking, this idiot. So, that being said, I don't know for those of you who haven't listened to him yet, but this is called Coffee House Crimes. Dude is a great presenter. Not quite like that chapter, but he has his own style. He's not approaching it funny in any way. So that being said, I mean, he's a great content creator. So like I said, if you guys like this true crime, definitely go pay his channel a visit and show him some love. So let's get to it. This is a killer alpha male, and yeah, I know quite of us wanted to just wring this asshole's neck, but you can't rid the world of all of them, I guess. So, hope you guys
Lyndon
enjoy.
Mcleod. You have likely never heard of this man before, but this narcissistic, misogynistic, violent man created a self-insert fanfiction trilogy all about himself. Most of those around Lyndon ignored the glaring red flags, and those who did highlight his concerning behaviour to authorities were seemingly ignored. But in December of 2021, Lyndon would go on to commit a series of violent actions, all of which were detailed in his books. And the consequences behind these actions were catastrophic. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, folks. My name is Adrian, and welcome back to another video by Coffee House Crime. Today we're looking at the case of Lyndon Mcleod. Now, this case is something. Lyndon Mcleod's story is right up there with Randy Stair and Elliot Rogers, as one of the most insufferable perpetrators that I've covered, and so with that said, viewer discretion is advised. And of course, just to let you know that I post solved, unsolved and strange cases here weekly. So if that's of interest to you, please consider subscribing to Coffee House Crime. So please, take a seat my friend, and enjoy the coffee here. This is the case of Lyndon Mcleod.
Makes me want to wring his neck.
Incredible landscapes, the Rocky Mountains, and endless days of sunshine. Of course, I'm talking about Colorado. Welcome to Denver, folks. Found near the center of Colorado, the mile-high city boasts more than 300 days of sunshine per year.
Yes,
there are many appealing aspects about Denver, which is probably why, in the most recent decade, its economy has grown by a staggering 19%. But let's not tire ourselves with the boring facts this time, especially when there's so much natural beauty to look at. Hiking is at the top of the list when it comes to Colorado's outdoor activities. Hundreds of trails sprawl across its mountains and forests, where other activities such as kayaking and mountain climbing await. And after a long day outside, Denver's incredible food scene will recharge you for the next one.
So it's funny because I'm a person who loves overcast, cloudy days. I don't know why, but I mean, I've lived here all my life and haven't left for more than, a couple months when I do travel. And yeah, I mean, it is sunny every single day. It feels like it really is. And today we were actually blessed with some rain and overcast, and it still is right now. But yeah, if you are looking for somewhere sunny to go, where you're not particularly fond of a beach, yeah, Colorado would definitely be it for you. But constantly sunny.
It is also a city with world-famous breweries, a thriving sports culture, and more than 200 local parks. If you can manage Denver's rocketing prices, then you are more than sure to have fun here. And found within the city of Denver lived a man named Lyndon Mcleod. Lyndon was not your everyday man, and as much as he'd like you to believe that he was a superhero, his unique differences tend to push him in the opposite direction. Born in the year 1974, Lyndon Mcleod was born into a military family. He spent his younger years overseas, before living across multiple states in the US, and after attending high school in Ohio, he made the move down south to Texas. A rather sharp turn to our story, but by the time Lyndon was in his mid-20s, he found himself in a cult. This was due to his obsession with his girlfriend at the time, who eventually left him for another man. Rather appropriate for the direction this story will take, but the cult's slogan was, "Quit bitching, start a revolution." By the late 90s, Lyndon had established himself as a man who loved rock music, the great outdoors, and motorcycles. And that final hobby would come at a cost. That cost came in the form of a neck injury, as one day while on his bike, he was involved in a road collision. This collision left him in hospital for several weeks, which also led to an addiction with opioids, during his recovery and afterwards too. But by the year 2004, Lyndon had moved to Denver, Colorado, where he then took up work in the medicinal cannabis industry on North Holly Street, a move that actually would earn him a lot of money. He stayed in this venture for several years, but getting straight into it, in the year 2013, he ended up losing his managerial position after he threatened his employees with a gun. It was around this time that he met a very special character, a man named Jeremy Costello. Jeremy was a tattoo artist, and while adding another one to Lyndon's skin, the two began to talk. Now, Lyndon loved tattoos, and had many of them all...
I always pick up little things like this that just irk me, but the audio is straight from obviously this video that he posted, but it's slightly off, so I'm like, oh, come on, man. But it's not from this end, because I've watched it on my iPhone earlier, and now this, I'm like, the lip syncing is off here.
Over his body, but he was not an artist himself, and had no idea how to successfully run a tattoo shop. Despite this, he impulsively decided to invest all of his money into a new tattoo business with Jeremy. And needless to say, this eventually ended up bad for the both of them. Lyndon had a terrible relationship with his employees. He was aggressive, uncompassionate, and dreadfully sexist towards all of his female colleagues. No surprise, but eventually everyone hated him. This is something that'll come up time and time again in this video, but he was actually an extremely misogynistic man. He believed women were useless and should have no say in important decisions. Most of his relationships would crumble within months, and despite his own brash personality, Lyndon was also extremely sensitive and held grudges much longer than most. And to add to this, he seemingly had no idea how to manage finances. By the year 2015, he was forced to close his shop, which destroyed his relationship with Jeremy.
So I had a very successful business. I was an entrepreneur from about the age of 33. I was ruined financially. I went from making maybe 25, 30 grand a month in cash to zero, all in an instant. And so I had to sell all my assets, including my home. I mean, I was really in a bad spot. My friends just burned me. My girl just burned me. Like, my own family burned me. I mean, the details are Byzantine. They're really, really shocking. And it shocked me. And so I went to a very dark place. And I had all kinds of ideas of what I was going to do. in order to make this right.
High quality music and sound effects that you can actually afford? Call 911. I'm on.
With the unfortunate change in his financial situation, Lyndon retreated from the city and moved to a tiny home up in the mountains of Weston, outside of Denver. Being a fan of the tiny house movement and not having much money to spare, he made his own tiny house out of shipping containers, where he obnoxiously posted about it online. In one post, he said, "Most people try to make everything small in a tiny home, but I went the opposite route. I have less things, but each thing is larger. This was made possible because I didn't want a ton of goddamn storage. Storage is code for a woman lives here, and needs a place to put all her modern bullshit that nobody needs. My home has books, guns, and meat. I don't need storage for anything else." Lyndon was already on a selfish and self-righteous path.
It just dawned on me. I don't need storage for anything else, but I live in a storage that I made into a home.
He had already burned many bridges with former friends and colleagues, but after losing all of his money and becoming isolated in the mountains, his behaviour, thoughts and opinions would all sink to a whole new level. He had also become more open about his views on women. He outwardly hated them and showed no respect towards female well-being. It was around this time that Lyndon decided to become an author. He adopted the name Roman Mcleod as an online alias and began to write his own novels, and in particular was a 3-part series called Sanction. Now, I've briefly skimmed over the books, and quite honestly, they are absolutely terrible. His opinions are as tragic as his grammar, and the make-believe world he created does nothing but stroke his own ego. The main character is of himself, who is, quote, an extraordinarily gifted boy born into an average family. He describes himself as a supreme sigma, with high morality and culture. Advanced AI selects him as the perfect being, and duplicates his DNA into 1.6 million other men to accelerate mankind's development. He also rambles on about alpha males versus beta males, and also describes women as promiscuous people who only think with their heads in the clouds. Lyndon's character also has the same history as Lyndon himself.
So this, like I said, this isn't so much first reaction or just reaction all the way around. I know the whole story, but the irony that plays out at the end is just a classic. I mean, I'm only laughing for what happened to him at the end, and not laughing that well, I almost gave it away there, but I laugh at the fact that here he is has such a harsh grudge against, women, and just how it played out at the end, because I wouldn't laugh at anyone being, what happened to him. But, yeah, I mean, everything that he's about or bitching about or whatever, I mean, it just, yeah, it's irony.
From birth to the cannabis farm to being screwed over by Jeremy. But the disturbing details do not stop there. His character then goes on a 6-month murder spree, killing 46 people. And all of those 46 had wronged him in the past. His books further talk about taking action to start a war on American soil. And meanwhile, in the real world, Lyndon referred to himself as an outlaw and vouched for the book to one day become reality. So maybe all of this was just some sort of sick fantasy, a way for him to vent out all of the negative emotions that had built up in his past. But to many others, it was a glaring red flag. With thanks to these books, Lyndon grew small fame in the manosphere. A collection of websites and forums that promote masculinity and misogyny and oppose feminism. These are typically populated by self-help hucksters, men's rights activists, incels, and the like. Lyndon would go on to meet many people through this pipeline, where he also expressed his frustrations at those who have, quote, betrayed him in the past.
That's how I live now.
Yeah.
I live on
It's validation.
It's validation.
Deep validation.
Yes, because I was alone in the wilderness for years, abandoned by my tribe, usurped, betrayed, overthrown, like
in a literal sense.
Literally,
in a literal
like
sense.
no joke, like really fucked over by my tribe, and now I have a new tribe, and they're loyal to me, and I haven't tested the limits of that loyalty, but for where we're at now, they have shown supreme loyalty to me.
And through podcasts, interviews, and hanging out, he would allude to and even recognize his own problematic behavior.
I live in a weird space. I'm proud of who I am, but I'm not proud of everything I'm about. I have thoughts, I have opinions, I have ideas, I have instincts that I think are wrong. But I have them. They're mine. They're real.
Yeah.
And I won't pretend I don't have them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm proud of them. I don't know if a person has to deny what they are or embrace it fully. I had to admit, this is who I am, and it's ugly.
Although these books were a red flag in their own right, there were many more opportunities for those around Lyndon to notice a deeply troubled and disturbed man. Both local and federal police knew of Lyndon, and authorities had even been called to his home over allegations of domestic violence on more than just a few occasions.
I say this lightly, and I mean it's just a fact or reality of anywhere, really, that every single type of person is capable of awful actions, things that they want to see, come to fruition. But he was reported numerous times, and they didn't do shit about it. And when I say they, law enforcement. And I'll rewind it a little bit in case you didn't catch the whole thing, but, Jefferson County in Colorado here is pretty, how can I say it? Definitely sees color differently. I had a friend of mine that I had taken to a lawyer's office, and he comes out shaking his head. I'm like, what did, what's, because he was in a custody battle. And the lawyer told him something to the effects, if I can remember correctly, but, do not take her to court because I could almost guarantee you that you will not come out successful. And so my jaw was kind of like dropped when he's telling me this. And he's not a, fibber. He doesn't, make up, fantasies of like this idiot here. But he ended up seeing 4 more lawyers after that, and they said the same thing. In Jefferson County, they see color because his girlfriend or whatever, she was, or she is, a Caucasian. And me, I mean, I don't know if I ever said it flat out before, but, I went to an pretty much all white private school. And, being 15 years old and all that, and they let me in free of tuition because I could play football. I loved basketball, though. I really did. But I was just a big guy who, at the time, I weighed plus over 300 pounds. And so, but I was fast for being big, naturally gifted at football, but my heart was with basketball. I just ended up at an awkward height of 6'4". 6'4" basketball players are like those fast-ass little point guards. But yeah, wasn't my destiny. But anyways, being around, nothing but, Caucasians at this private school, like, I never really cared or saw color, but man, I grew up with the little freaking, little jabs I would get, from honestly staff more than the, school body people, but I'd get like, wetback or what's up, big beaner. And it didn't bother me. Now, the reason why it didn't bother me was because it was more joking than anything else. There's only one person who I was about to punch out, but yeah, I had to let it go. Just, Mexican this or big beaner that or whatever. And it's prevalent like it is anywhere else in the United States. But yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm talking about this so much is that, I truly believe if this asshole was a different color, the cops would have, in Jefferson County at least, the cops would have got his ass ASAP. And I know that for 100% fact. So let me continue.
11 times, to be exact, from 2012 through to 2016. Lyndon had also made a series of death threats, which were so violent that the FBI paid a visit to his property. And former friends still following Lyndon online noticed him slowly yet surely slipping into more and more extreme behavior.
So the other thing that pisses me off about this too was he was accused of domestic violence. How the hell are you going to be owning firearms? Because as far as I know, in Colorado, like, you get like a domestic violence, thing and all that, like, they're taking your guns away. You know, they're staunch on that because, again, a buddy of mine, that's what he went through. Same guy I was talking about. And, yeah, I mean, he had to surrender his firearms. And being reported 11 times is just, it could have saved. I mean, I'll let the story continue without ruining it.
Behavior. Appearing on a podcast in 2020, Lyndon described himself as, "My personality is so extreme that I'm like the oily rags in the garage next to a flame source. I'm just asking for it, you know? I'm either a beast or a philosopher. I don't live alike in this normal human world." He would also continue with his aggression online, spreading his belief that law enforcement and social norms protect the weak from the strong, and that the weak better buckle up, because, quote, "shit is about to get real." By the year 2021, nothing had changed. And in fact, Lyndon was becoming more demanding, more agitated, and more reckless. And although he had moved in to live with 2 fans, he was subsequently kicked out for becoming, quote, unhinged. Alongside his new partner, Anne, the two of them began to film clips for his next new project, which was a self-protagonist film called Warhorse. But as the two grew accustomed to one another, Lyndon's ugly side shone through. After striking her across the face, the two decided to take a temporary break from one another. So while Anne headed back home to Salt Lake City, Lyndon was given $20,000 pocket money, along with her van and motorcycle to continue recording. But after parting ways, Lyndon suddenly fell silent. Anne tried to contact her boyfriend over and over again, but he never replied. Her suspicion grew, and just days later, she realized that Lyndon had stolen a further $37,000 through crypto payments. Lyndon had rinsed her for her money. Almost simultaneously with this discovery, a few of those close to Lyndon had also learned that he'd been grooming underage girls online, and that he'd been stealing money from other ex-friends too. Lyndon's addiction to opioids was never fully overcome, but this addiction would peak and trough throughout the years. And by winter of 2021, he was once again heavily abusing the drugs. And by December of 2021, all of Lyndon's problems would collapse in the worst imaginative kind of way.
Your videos need the best music, and with Artlist, the possibilities are limitless. Let's make it epic.
I know while I was thinking about getting my, starting up, trying to make videos on YouTube and stuff like that, whenever somebody would have commercials play, I'd be like, God, get the premium. But there's a reason. I've said it multiple times why I haven't got back my premium yet, because, yeah. I say it in the other videos. I don't want to constantly be like, oh yeah, this or that. But, yeah, sorry about the ads, guys.
On Monday the 27th of December, only 2 days after Christmas,
it wasn't snowy like
the peaceful atmosphere found in downtown Denver was met with Lyndon's wrath.
Warm.
Shortly before
that night, like I was talking about, it was unseasonably warm that evening. And that's, cold or not, I'd still go walking. I have a heated jacket, a battery power heated jacket. So it doesn't bother me if it's cold or, it does bother me if it's hot, though. I hate being hot. I hate sunshine. But, yeah, this was like in the evening because I had went walking. Usually I go like 7:30 to 9:30 and just walk around for a couple hours, the parks. And it was just crazy because things went off. And the only time that happened was Columbine. I was at my friend's work for Columbine, and that was only a couple miles away from where he worked at the time. And, we just start hearing all these cop cars just screaming towards Columbine. And, yeah, those were the only 2 times was this last December 27th and Columbine that so much commotion was going on because you could see right away that the police was out in full force. Excuse me. It was pretty crazy, so, yeah.
Before 5:25 p.m., a black Ford Econoline pulled up next to the Soul Tribe, a tattoo shop located on Broadway. Just seconds later, the armed man left his vehicle and entered the store. Lyndon opened fire on all that were inside. Alicia Cardenas, Alice Gunn Maldonado, and Jimmy Maldonado were all shot in the process. And tragically, both Alicia and Alyssa were killed almost instantly. Lyndon stormed out of the tattoo shop, where he then made his way to his next so-called enemy. And just 6 minutes after leaving Soul Tribe, he arrived at West 6th Avenue near Bannock Street. This was the location of Jeremy's apartment, and dressed as a delivery driver, he knocked on the family's front door, only to be greeted by Jeremy's wife. Lyndon asked for Jeremy, but she found it strange that the driver had turned up at this time of day, and to a door rarely used by public personnel. Using her wits, she told Lyndon that he wasn't home, when in reality, Jeremy was eating dinner in the next room. Lyndon walked away, but just 10 minutes later, he returned with a sledgehammer. As the family fled, Lyndon fired through several doors of the house, several bullets flying past the baby's crib in the process. Just moments later, the family's truck was also set ablaze. By 5:45 PM, Lyndon had arrived at a condo next to Cheeseman Park, near East 12th Avenue. This was the home of Michael Swinyard, another man to die in his books. Lyndon breached Michael's home, and tragically, after finding Michael, he shot him. Only 12 minutes later, and at 5:57 PM, a surveillance camera captured Lyndon pull up outside the Lucky 13 tattoo shop found near West Colfax Avenue. The footage showed...
Stupid fact, Colfax Avenue is the longest continuous street in the United States, and it, yeah, it definitely borders some crazy areas, that's for sure. But no, this is when he's actually pretty close to where my home is, and yeah, this is when I could hear all that commotion start up. I could have swore I was out much later, but maybe I was just getting the after effects of all the cops going after they may have... Well, don't want to give away the ending.
Shows him enter the shop, and not even 10 seconds later, exits. Within that time, he had spent an entire magazine into the Lucky 13, killing Danny Schofield, another person to have supposedly wronged him in the past. Barely reported by the media, next Lyndon walked into Ted's at Belmar, went behind the counter, and poured himself a drink. When confronted, he pulled a gun on the bartender before walking out.
It ain't you, bitch. Fuck off. Just wanted a drink. What?
Yeah,
By now, at 6:04 PM, officers had located Lyndon and his van at the Wells Fargo bank found in the Belmar shopping area. They tried to contact him, but instead he fired his gun at the police. Police officers fired back, but Lyndon was able to escape the shootout. He made his way into the Hyatt House Hotel, drew his gun to the front desk worker, and unfortunately shot her. He had no idea who she was, but tragically, Sarah Steck was killed in the process. Lyndon then proceeded on foot to the intersection of South Vance Street and West Alaska Drive. This is where he came across police agent Ashley Ferris. Already hearing of the other tattoo shootings, and on a hunch, Ashley decided to rush to a tattoo shop in Lakewood. She ordered Lyndon to drop his weapon, but instead he shot the woman in the abdomen. Despite being shot, Ashley returned fire, killing Lyndon Mcleod almost immediately.
There's the irony, you fucking pricks. Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry. I just can't stand hearing about innocent people being killed for no goddamn reason, especially with so many freaking reports on his ass. But the irony is that, you know, here he hated women so much, and it was by a woman's hands that he got killed. And like I said, I don't mean to sound like awful, but I mean, that's what he had coming to him, and rightfully so. I mean, just a big, egotistical piece of shit.
And at long last, his reign of terror was over. What authorities were faced with next was the path of destruction left behind. With 5 deaths and 2 injuries spread across several harrowing scenes, scores of police tape, and hundreds of officers sprawled across the awful aftermath. Denver and the local communities banded together to show their love and support for the victims. And with multiple tattoo shops destroyed, the assault seemed to be targeted. Combining this with the deaths of multiple tattoo artists, the 27th of December 2021 came to be one of the tattoo community's darkest days. By morning, the city had come to realize that the shooter was none other than Lyndon Mcleod, and tragically, almost everyone who already knew of him admitted they were not surprised. It probably comes as no surprise to you either, but authorities had countless opportunities to intervene and stop Lyndon from his final actions. His former roommates, who had already kicked him out of the property, had warned authorities already of his growing violent behaviour. He had shared with them that he wanted to attack Denver with a flamethrower and begin a violent revolution. Many friends and fans had tried to warn authorities about this. Andrew Teal had grown weary of Lyndon, and had even called Denver police, the FBI, and German police to complain. This man did his very best to address the authorities. Andrew literally created a 9-page document addressing all of his threats with sources. And all of this was an entire year before the attack. It's a terrible shame that no one listened to him. Now, of course, the public would soon learn of his books, and everything seems so obvious in hindsight, but these books would describe the very same actions Lyndon took on his final night. You know, it's strange to think about, but he essentially portrayed his main character as an idealized copy of himself, and then viewed himself as his character. His character followed his history up to the point in time where he had written his books, but then, flipping the scenario, he would then follow his character's actions in the years to come, all the way through to his death. There was one crucial difference between him and his book, however, as he and his misogynistic life were killed by the hands of a female police officer, who, by the way, he had shot first. Although she was temporarily paralysed in her right leg after the shooting, Ashley Ferris is now able to walk again, and will hopefully go on to make full recovery. Jimmy would go on to make a full physical recovery.
I just seen in the news, it was actually on like maybe a week ago, that she's back on duty, and thank God, that she put that devil down for good. But I can't imagine how traumatizing that would be to get shot and, still come back. So much kudos to her.
But he has a new burden instead, as tragically, his wife Alice was killed in the process. Although Jeremy Costello and his partner were killed by Lyndon in his fictional book, the two luckily escaped with their baby in reality. As Lyndon broke his way into their home with a sledgehammer, Jeremy and his family fled through a side door before taking refuge in a nearby shop. This, of course, left them with a tremendous amount of psychological stress after the incident. But nevertheless, the family are glad and feel so fortunate to make it away with their lives.
I looked in the peephole and I saw it was like a delivery or a mail carrier. He said, I have a package for Jeremy Costello.
And he kept asking, are you sure? Are you sure? And she said, yeah. So we moved into this other room in between the two rooms of my shop, and he fired 6 shots through the door at us. I was pretty much his #1 target. I guess he wanted me to read it to see that in the book, a character was going to, that was his own name, Lyndon Mcleod, was going to kill me and then behead her.
I mean, everybody that was involved in this is a victim. We survived it, and I honestly have to thank Jeremy for that, and of course, the Lord.
Several days after Lyndon's death, his girlfriend Anne received a package from the grave. Inside it were the rights to all 3 of his books, along with a 47-minute movie he had created. Lyndon may have been a terrible tattoo shop manager and author, and he was just as terrible at movie producing too. His film, which is named Warhorse, was just as nauseating to watch. It's a series of overdramatic bad boy clips very loosely stitched together to create a barely discernible story. And of course, the main character is yet again Lyndon Mcleod. Very briefly showing you some parts of the trailer, dramatically framed scenes show Lyndon drinking whiskey while sheepishly grinning at lightning. He walks down dimly lit corridors, likely in search of his missing ego, and drives alongside big scary trains on his motorbike. The package received seemed to be sent on December the 27th, 2021, the very same day of the attack. And with his film being completed only days before he went on to kill multiple innocent people, it is all too likely that the film was intended to be used to glorify his actions. The movie was initially available for purchase online, but has since been deleted. Lower quality versions remain throughout the internet, but honestly, it's best buried. After Lyndon's death, officers made their way to his former home found in Denver. They were greeted by the home's new owner, who had a story to tell. Apparently, after buying the house off of Lyndon, he found multiple animal skulls scattered throughout the property. He also found multiple gun safes hidden behind walls. They found him to be very weird, and he pretty much completely vanished after selling the property. To quote a rather famous psychologist reviewing this case, Lyndon's business and financial failures were due to his incompetence, arrogance, aggression, and lack of people skills. Yet he blamed everyone else for what happened to him. He essentially hated all women, beta males, weak men, and those who wronged him in the past. And this left Lyndon very angry and isolated. Without the cognitive ability to challenge his own thoughts or opinions, he in turn became a very volatile man, and became more and more dangerous right up to the end. And sadly, this leads us to the victims of today's case, those who undeservedly died at his hands. Alyssa, Alicia, Danny, Michael, and Sarah. Jimmy Maldonado, who was also shot but survived, remembers his wife Alyssa as light in the shadows. She was sweet and gangster all at the same time, and had an amazing balance. The two of them were planning to start a family together, but that was taken away from them in the mere blink of an eye. Alicia Cardenas is remembered as a pillar of Denver's artistic community. Wisdom and grace poured from her any time she chose to speak. She was a kind and wise person, and her work and artistic flair will carry on through the many apprentices she taught. Michael Swinyard, a 67-year-old builder, was a quiet man. While introverted and shy, he was also a very good listener and friend. He enjoyed golf and making those around him happy. Both of those things he was very good at. Danny Schofield, a talented creative who worked at the Lucky 13, leaves behind 3 children and is sorely missed by his children, sister, and the rest of his family. Danny is remembered as a thoughtful man who had inspired many others to become tattoo artists. Sarah Steck did not know Lyndon Mcleod. She was a stranger to him, but was shot anyway. At the age of 28, she had aspirations to become a graphic designer. She is remembered as an all-round great human being, beautiful and kind, and there to help anyone in need without hesitation. These 5 individuals had no chance to protect themselves from Lyndon's actions. And in fact, it is terrifying how quick some of these events unfolded. Whether there was any sort of contention between them and Lyndon in the past, it is certain that they did not deserve to have their lives taken. May the families and friends of Alyssa, Alicia, Danny, Michael, and Sarah find peace in the future. And so that just about wraps up our case today, folks. Thank you so much for watching another video today by Coffee House Crime. If you found this case interesting or insightful, then please remember to like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet. It's always a pleasure to see your thoughts in the comment section down below, so please remember to leave that there. And as always, I'll see you again real soon for another video. Until that moment arrives though, please remember to look after each other and stay safe. Thank you, and goodbye.
God, it just, it bothers me so much that there were so many freaking signs that, you know, we don't live in a perfect world though, but it's just, yeah, it gets to me every time I hear this story, because it just, not the fact that it's close to home, it could have been anywhere else, but it just boggles my mind that, you know, these people are actually keeping documents on his, you know, on how just mental this guy was, and nobody really stepped in and did much about it, and it could have saved 5 innocent people. But anyways, so hope you guys enjoyed this. You know, I know it's grim, but hope you guys enjoyed this video that I made. I appreciate all the people that had decided to subscribe to me. That is really cool. And for as long as I can, I'm going to continue putting out, you know, some reaction videos like this. After this, I'm going to do something of what I originally did when I started this channel, and that's, you know, finding new musical artists. And I found one that I was just like, wow. I've never sat down and watched any of like the American Idols or is it the X Factor or AGT, one of those. But yeah, if I'm like really bored or I'm traveling or something, I'll just be clicking through, and some singers just catch my attention where I'm like, holy shit. And then I end up watching episodes on YouTube. But yeah, I found a really good singer. So if you guys want, you can check out that next video that I'm going to upload here shortly after this. So hope you guys are doing great. Stay safe. And yeah, thank you for checking out my video. Have a good day. is it? There it is.